Well, there's a war going on, and it's not really all that obvious, but as the days are progressing, it's becoming more and more obvious, this war. And the sides are being drawn. And on one side, what we have is we have the United States, we have Great Britain, we have Israel, we have Japan, we have South Korea, we have a number of countries that are all on the same side. Most of Western Europe are all on the same side. They're all on one side. Now, Russia, China, North Korea, and Syria, and Iran, they're all on the opposing side. And more these sides are becoming polarized because of this war that's going on. And what's going on in North Korea is not helping things any. Now, they all claim that they're in there, all in Syria, all fighting ISIS and all this kind of stuff. But in reality, what's really going on is this war. And what it really comes down to, the nitty-gritty of it, I suppose, an awful lot of it anyway, is got to do with the petrodollar. The petrodollar is dying, and so is the empire. The United States and Great Britain and the United States has had the world reserve currency, and going back to when Kissinger signed a deal with OPEC that oil would only be sold in dollars. This deal was ruthlessly upheld. A number of times different ones came in and they tried to change things. They tried to erode the petrodollar standard, you know, and they're gone. They're gone. It's just like Hillary Clinton said, we came, we saw, he died. Ha ha ha. You know? And so they disappeared, these ones that were trying to change the... but now, during this state of the petrodollar erosion, things have become desperate now at this point. Desperacy to uphold the petrodollar. China is in a war to destroy the petrodollar. They fired the first shot over the bow back during the Obama administration when the U.S. dollar was now I remember this well. What happened when the debt ceiling wasn't raised quite in time, and then it triggered a reaction. There was a government shutdown, and the China said then. They said it right then. That's when they said it. That was when they fired the first shot. That's when they decided that the U.S. dollar's got to go. It's the world reserve standard. And, well, that's when they announced. I shouldn't say that's when they decided. I think that they decided a long time before then, but that's when they got brazen enough to announce it to the world. That the United States dollar has to be, is too late for the United States dollar. Too much debt behind the dollar. It's eroding their savings in U.S. Treasury bonds. Too much. It's got to go. And that's when they announced it, way back then. Now they're really getting serious with it. And them getting serious with it, this war is heating up. Because the United States does not want to slide down the toilet hole easily. And they're trying to push us down the toilet hole and flush the toilet on us. Basically, they're not our friends. China is not our friends. Believe me, they want to make slaves out of us. And not directly. They're not going to be right there standing over us with a whip over our backs. But they plan on owning the factories that we work in. And they'll have a boss over us, and they'll own the factory, and they'll be getting the proceeds of any money that we make for them. This is what their plan is. They plan on making their currency, the world reserve currency, and backing their currency with gold. And now they're finally really starting to come out in the open with it, and they're getting ready to pull the trigger. Let me read you a little something that happened here. Israeli launches an airstrike on Syria, and Assad's waiting game. Immediately after Israel's latest unprovoked strike on Syria, we posed the question, did Benjamin Netanyahu just panic? The answer is yes. Israel is now acting from a position of desperation as it has failed its goal of regime change in Syria. See? And this is part of a loss in this battle that's going on. This is a war that's going on. And at places, it's a hot war. In Syria, it's manifesting itself as a hot war. You see? And Israel is on the side that's on the side of the West. The East, they're fighting their war too. And this is why when Donald Trump, not long ago, he launched a whole bunch of missiles into Syria. Not long after that gas attack. And what happened? Russia come back and they brought their ships in. And they meant business. And they said, no more. Back off. This is because their interest, Russia's interest in that region, is more important to them than starting World War III. What they're showing their hand. They've got troops stationed in Crimea. They got 100,000 troops stationed in Crimea. They got 40,000 more troops stationed on the border of Ukraine. And from what I understand, they have not backed off, the Russians. The Russians are in there on the Chinese side of this whole thing. This whole thing could turn into a bigger, more upscale hot war at any time, overnight, because it's already on. The war is already on. And right now, it's a financial war. Now, let me read you a little bit more about what's going on with this. Now, this guy right here, he says, a U.S. trade war with China isn't likely to happen. Well, I got news for you, buddy. It's already happened. He's sitting there saying it isn't likely to happen. It's already happened. He says, despite the touchy situation that is North Korea, but something far more devastating to the U.S. economy could possibly unwind following North Korea's claim late Saturday that it had tested a hydrogen bomb strong enough to reach the United States shores. That is volatility in the financial markets, with enough impact to set off a panic and lead to an economic standstill, said international trade expert. No, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. In an interview. An outright trade war is not likely because it would be so devastating, said Pellick, who works in the political state department at McGill University in Montreal. Now, here's what he says. An outright trade war is not likely because it would be so devastating. Well, I think he's totally wrong. I think we're already in an outright trade war. And I think it's about ready to start really heating up because China means to actually devastate our dollar. First financial wars, then hot wars. This is what comes. First you start having financial trouble, and then they take you to war. It's as simple as that. And the whole thing's lining up. The cards are all lining up on the table right this minute, and most people are not noticing this. And so, honest to Pete, it's really, though, for the American economy, it would be just a boon if China stopped their sucking sound against our economy. If an outright trade war with China did erupt, ultimately it would lead to bringing back jobs for America, you know. I mean, because China is the reason why we're in such an economic standstill right now. They've been playing out these plans of theirs for a long time. They've been relying upon the fact that we have grown kind of soft. I'll say it. I'll say it. We have actually grown soft. We've grown soft on the fat of the land, and they've taken advantage of this. You know? They've taken advantage of it. They saw our weak spot, and they've exploited it. They're not our friends. And as the days go by right now, it's going to become more and more clear, more and more manifest to all the people out there that they're not our friends. They're the friends of North Korea. They're so buddy with North Korea, it's unbelievable. And the United States, if they just continue to push at North Korea, China will show their hand in the end. They will show. They've been all like, okay, pretending like they're on America's side in all this. But in truth, they're actually on North Korea's side. And ultimately, it will be shown that they are on North Korea's side in all of this. They call North Korea, quite literally, little brother. That's what China calls North Korea. You know, and so this is going to be proven in the end. It'll be proven that China and North Korea are buddies. It'll all come out in the wash, you know. It says on Sunday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin told Fox News that he would draft a new sanctions package for President Trump, extending the administration's pressures on China to rein in North Korea to all U.S. trading partners. Anybody that wants to do trade or business with North Korea would be prevented from doing business with us. It says overnight, the Japan Nikkei 225 and the South Korean Kospi index both fell 1%. In retaliation for increasing pressures from Washington, China would increase tariffs on steel or exports to the United States. Market heavily relies on this steel. It says, one is the rare earths that are needed to manufacture smartphones. China produces 90% of the minerals. See? So you can see your phone's going way up in price, coming up pretty soon. You know? So, stuff like this. I mean, it says trade partners who share regional supply chains, such as the United States auto industry, would be especially hard hit. So what we're looking at a rapidly escalating trade war that's probably going to turn into a hot war. And I'll tell you where the war is going to erupt is going to be the most dangerous. It's not North Korea. An awful lot of people think, oh, North Korea. No, that's not it. Even if it did erupt in North Korea, war erupted, which I don't think it will. I think that even when World War III erupts and the real fighting starts, the real bad fighting starts, it's not going to be in North Korea. It's not going to be where you think it's going to be. North Korea will still be hanging on to their nuclear weapons. They will still be the hermit state that they are, and they will still probably be firing missiles once a week. You know? It's just going to be more of the same with North Korea, and the United States will still be rattling its saber, saying we're going to not allow North Korea to do this while North Korea does it. Well, that's just going to continue on, that situation. But I'll tell you where the real hot war is going to erupt. It's going to erupt fast. When it erupts, it's very dangerous. It could escalate into an all-out nuclear battle. And seriously, it's where you really need to keep your attention. It's what could destroy everything. It's the real hot spot. It's the real bad spot. It's the bad, bad, bad spot that nobody's paying attention to. Ukraine. That's the bad spot. Russia it took Crimea, which is attached to Ukraine, and they've got their troops stationed there, and they're not going to give Crimea back. They've got 40,000 troops stationed on the border there in Ukraine, ready to move. They're ready to take Ukraine. They've got more tanks than you can imagine. And their ultimate plan is to push through Ukraine, and NATO ain't going to do nothing. And the reason why is because Ukraine is not a NATO member country. And they'll push through Moldova too. They'll come up hard against the Romanian border. And they'll come up hard against the Polish border. Now, it remains to be seen if they will actually stop when they come up against the Romanian-Polish border after they've taken that huge chunk of land. once they're in gear for war, you know. And of course the tensions will be awful tight at that point after they've invaded, you know. It's going to increase tensions, something desperate. You think it's bad during the Cold War was nothing compared to what this will be when they're coming through that area. Fighting very well could erupt after they take Moldova. Fighting could very well erupt on the Romanian border, between Romania and Moldova, and the same on the Polish border, because what will happen is NATO will bring troops in to the Polish border and the Romanian border, really heavy. They'll bring the troops into those two areas, and they'll be right up hard against Russian troops that are battle ready. I mean, they've just already taken areas, and so it's a very tense situation could develop there, and that could erupt so fast. I mean, overnight you could all of a sudden hear on the news that Russia has starting to invade, because they're prepared. They've been preparing now for the longest time for this. They've got their troops in there. They just got done a training exercise. I think they're actually, to tell you the truth, I think they're still doing their training exercise right now for this, preparation for this. You know, and the Russians, they're right in there now. They're allowed to train all they want on their own side of the border, though. But it makes NATO awfully nervous. NATO is Russian troops down in there while the Russians are doing their training exercise, because NATO knows that they're prepared. So this war is really already on. It's already started. It's a trade war right now, but it could turn into a hot war overnight. And it already is a hot war. They're already fighting in Syria, this war. You know? But they're it's kind of like they're fighting, but they're not really fighting. It's kind of like proxy sort of a thing. You know, it's kind of like they're pretending like they're not really already fighting, like they're all on the same side. But that's just to fool everybody else, you know. The truth is this war has already begun. They're already holding their positions, holding their ground, and the West is coming up against the East. And the East intends on winning this war. In actuality, at this point, the East is probably more powerful than the West. Even militarily, they're probably more powerful than the West, because it's China and Russia together in on this. The whole thing is a bad situation, and we got to keep our eyes on the tension that's developing with this situation. I'm especially keeping my eyes focused on this new Chinese yuan gold trade for oil deal that's going on right now. I mean, this is happening right now. If you haven't heard about it, you will pretty soon. And I'm keeping my eye right on this. I'm like studying this daily. Find out what this is all about, how far along this is, because this is their last move to take the petrodollar down. And you have no idea what the effect this is going to have very shortly on your way of life if you're American. If you live here in North America, if you're either in Canada or the United States or even in Mexico, you have no idea, or even in Great Britain, you have no idea what effect this is going to have on your way of life right now, what I just talked about. But it's going to have such a profound effect on your way of life that it's like going to be like night and day. And this is why you got to need to start preparing for this financially. Otherwise, if all you are is invested in dollars or fiat currencies, then you're going to end up seeing your way of life basically go down the toilet, you know, and you don't want that. So you need to start preparing for yourself and for your family, for your future, so that you're going to be one of the people that can afford to actually stay in your house. And you can actually afford to go to the grocery store and buy enough food so your stomach's not hungry every night. While your neighbors, they might be rich right now. They might be driving a car that you envy right now at this point. But you'll see them out of their house if they're all in fiat, if that's all they got is fiat. And it's most likely that's the way with your neighbors. Probably all they have is fiat. In other words, all they have invested in is dollars or stocks and bonds, you know, and they may have a portfolio. They might be quite a bit more wealthy than you are. You'll see them out of their house. You'll see them lose their car and possibly even lose their life. And you, even if you haven't got that much, if you've invested in the right thing, you'll be able to stay in your house. You'll be able to go and buy yourself some food so that you're not hungry at night. You might not be rich going through this thing, or you might be a lot more wealthy than other people. I'm going to tell you, if everybody else is losing their home, everybody else is starving, then if you're the man that has a loaf of bread and a roof over your head, even if you're not rich, you're way better off than them. It's something to think about, really. You know? So listen, thank you guys for listening, like, and subscribe, and we're going to catch you in the next article.